Greetings, one and all, and welcome to Dual-Wielder's Writing Debugging, where I break down writing tips and tactics into bite-sized chunks to help you improve your own writing. In this entry, let's have a brief gander at the complex matter of pacing. But what exactly is pacing? Well, have you ever sat down and watched a movie or show, played a game, or read a book, and then all of a sudden you've lost several hours to it without realizing? Or have you started any of those things, and it feels like a great deal of time has passed, but then you realize that it's only been 30 minutes? Well, a large part of that is because of pacing. It's a complex concoction of how you use all of your tools as a writer and when you use them. Obviously, a great deal of this will be subjective, but some points will make it much more likely to have your audience engage with your work. I've seen many people rush through their story because they want to get to what they deem as the good part. Whether that's the big reveal in a mystery, the plot twist that recontextualizes everything that came before, the epic final battle between the forces of good and evil, or when the lovers come together in a romance. But what if I told you that those moments will only have the impact that you want them to have if you slow down a bit? Take your time with the story. What gives all of those context and meaning is the connections to the characters and world. When the audience comes to believe that your characters are real and that your world is one that can be lived in, then all of those climactic moments will have much more weight to them. This plays into the pacing. Don't rush it. Going too fast can cause your setting and characters to come across as underdeveloped. Not to mention that if you go too fast, some of your audience can become overwhelmed. When it's non-stop high moments, then there's no context. None of the spectacle will matter because there's nothing to contrast it. Just look at one of my favorite films, Jaws. From the opening scene, the movie begins setting up the presence of the shark. We don't even see it here, which adds to its menacing aura. All we see is it play with its victim in a sadistic fashion before dragging her under. We then get development for our protagonist, Police Chief Brody, and the pacing slows down from the fast pace of the first attack. We get to see how he interacts with and cares about his family, and see the setting of Amity Island. We witness how tourism to its beaches is what the town thrives off of, and so come to understand why the mayor wants to ignore the situation, even when presented with evidence. The pace picks back up when the shark makes its move again, this time taking a young boy and a canoer mere feet from Brody's son, making the stakes personal this time. Not to mention the guilt that Brody must feel when he sees the boy's mother mourning and knowing that he should have pushed the mayor harder to close the beaches. The pacing then slows down again while we get to understand Hooper and Quint, coming to understand how the former wants to study sharks for science, while the latter hunts them out of vengeance for his comrades being devoured by them. Slowly, the pace ramps up through the remainder of the film as both sides probe each other and test their reactions. By the time of the end of the movie, the shark nearly succeeds in slaughtering all three men. Some might say, oh, but it's just a shark. But the film's pacing allows it to be so much more than that. It isn't all action. The pacing lets us understand that this shark is much more than others of its kind, being far larger and more intelligent. On the other hand, though, you also don't want the pacing of your work to be too slow either. If there aren't enough moments to raise the tension, then your audience may lose interest, seeing no payoff to the setup. As much as I would recommend them, the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan spans 14 novels. These contain over 4 million words. Just speaking from my own personal experience, I can burn through the first 3 books in a day, but the pacing comes to a screeching halt afterward. Several of these books could have been condensed to create a shorter, more concise work. Many characters are seen quite infrequently and have very similar names, leading to momentary confusion when they appear. The story stops to focus on the world so much that the plot slows to a crawl. I remember one sequence breaking away from our characters learning that an extremely dangerous prisoner has escaped to describe the lace on their clothing. I genuinely began to wonder after a time if plain clothing even existed in that setting. Point being, the Wheel of Time's pace can often become too slow. So, in summary, pacing is a matter of delicate balance. You don't want to rush through the development of your characters and setting to get to the moments of tension, but similarly, you mustn't go so slowly that the progress of the narrative comes to a halt. But what do you think about pacing? Do you know of any works that suffer from pacing that is too fast or slow? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a like on this video if you're so inclined, and subscribe to see more. I would like to thank you for watching, and may you all have a weapon in each hand.